At my best friend's 70th birthday, she humiliated me in public by calling me traitor. But I had a gift that would change everything. I should have noticed something was wrong when Dorothy called to confirm my attendance at her party for the third time in a week. "Margaret, you're really coming, aren't you? I need to confirm with the caterer." Her voice had a strange tone, almost too anxious. But after 50 years of friendship, I was used to Dorothy's little peculiarities. She'd always been a perfectionist about her events. "Of course I'm coming, Dot. I already told you that. I'd never miss your 70th, I replied, holding the phone while carefully wrapping the special gift I'd spent months preparing. Something meaningful that captured our decades of shared history. Something that would remind her of all we'd been through together. "Good," she responded dryly. "I'll expect you at 7. Perhaps it was her curt tone I should have noticed. Dorothy normally talked for hours on the phone, but in recent weeks our conversations had become increasingly brief and tense. I attributed it to the stress of the party. Turning 70 wasn't a small thing, especially for someone as concerned with appearances as Dorothy. On the day of the party, I wore my best navy blue dress, put on the pearls Dorothy had given me for my 60th birthday, and took a taxi to the country club ballroom. The place was stunning, with flower arrangements everywhere, soft lighting, and a small orchestra playing jazz standards. I was greeted by Christine, Dorothy's daughter, who gave me a strange, almost hesitant hug. "Glad you came, Margaret," she said, avoiding my gaze. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," I replied, looking around for Dorothy. "Where's the birthday girl? Mom's greeting some guests." She'll be surprised to see you." Christine nervously bit her lip. Surprised? But she called me 3 times. To confirm I was coming. Christine gave me a tense smile and pointed to a table at the back of the room. "Your place is over there, table 15. I walked in the direction she indicated, clutching my carefully wrapped gift. As I walked, I noticed curious glances and whispers. Old friends I expected would come greet me averted their eyes. Something was definitely wrong. Table 15 was in the farthest corner of the ballroom, away from the main table where Dorothy would be seated. I sat down alone, watching other guests interact animatedly. My name was written in elegant calligraphy on the card on the table, but the other places were empty. Half an hour later, still alone at the table, I saw Dorothy enter the main ballroom. She looked stunning in a red dress, her platinum hair perfectly styled. Everyone stood up to applaud her. Our eyes met briefly, and to my surprise, she quickly looked away, as if she didn't want to see me. During dinner, other guests occupied my table. People I barely knew, Dorothy's recent friends who seemed just as uncomfortable as I was. The conversation was forced, artificial. No one mentioned my long friendship with the birthday girl. When it was time for the toasts, Dorothy's husband, George, stood up first. "I'd like to thank everyone who came to celebrate this special night with my wonderful wife. Dorothy is the most loyal, honest, and genuine woman I've ever known." I smiled, agreeing. I knew those qualities in her well. Next, several friends made small speeches, sharing memories. Some mentioned stories I was part of, but my name was never pronounced, as if I'd been edited out of the memories. When Dorothy finally stood up to thank everyone, I felt my heart warm. Surely now she would acknowledge me, her oldest friend. "I want to thank all of you who are here, my true friends." Her voice was firm, carrying 50 years of our shared history, our confidences, our secrets. People I can trust, who would never stab me in the back or betray my confidence. Her eyes scanned the room and, for the first time that night, fixed directly on me. I felt a chill run down my spine. Because in life, we discover who our true friends are, and we also discover who the traitors are. Silence fell over the ballroom. Everyone seemed to have stopped breathing. "Some of you might be wondering why I invited Margaret tonight." She pointed at me, and suddenly, All eyes turned in my direction. I thought she deserved to hear directly from me what I think about her betrayal. I felt my face burning. My hands began to shake. For 50 years, I considered this woman my best friend. I shared everything with her. My secrets, my fears, my family. Dorothy's voice trembled slightly, but her eyes were hard as stone. And how did she repay me? By spreading lies about me, trying to steal my friends, speaking ill of me behind my back. I wanted to stand up, to protest, to say none of it was true, but my body seemed frozen, glued to the chair. So, Margaret, she continued, raising her glass in my direction, thank you for showing me that not every friendship survives the test of time. Thank you for teaching me that not everyone deserves our trust. The guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. Some reluctantly raised their glasses. Others kept their hands in their laps. To betrayal, Dorothy exclaimed, taking a long sip of champagne. Murmurs spread through the ballroom. Someone coughed. A chair scraped. I finally found the strength to stand up. My legs were shaking, but I managed to get to my feet. The carefully wrapped gift felt heavy in my hands. Dorothy, I managed to say, my voice almost a whisper. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you don't, she replied with a cold smile. Traitors never admit what they've done. I looked around the room, at faces I'd known for decades. No one met my gaze. No one stood up in my defense. I think you should leave now, Dorothy said, her tone making it clear this wasn't a request. In that moment, something inside me broke. 50 years of friendship, shared confidences, mutual support, destroyed in a few minutes of public humiliation. Happy birthday, Dorothy, I said calmly, placing my gift back in my purse. I wouldn't leave it now, not after this. I walked toward the exit, feeling the stairs burning into my back. No one followed me. No one called my name. When the cool night air touched my face, the tears I had fought to contain finally fell. 50 years of friendship destroyed in one night, and I didn't even know why. The taxi arrived quickly. Where to? Ma'am? Asked the driver. I hesitated. Home? To that empty house since Frank passed away 3 years ago? The house where Dorothy and I had shared so many afternoons of tea, so many laughs, so many tears. Ma'am? Are you all right? I wiped away the tears and straightened my shoulders. Yes, I answered, determination slowly replacing the pain. I'm fine, and I know exactly where I want to go. Because that public humiliation wouldn't be the end of our story. The gift I hadn't given, something I had poured my heart into, now seemed different to me. It wasn't just a birthday present. It was something much more powerful. The taxi pulled away from the country club, leaving behind the glittering lights and the muffled sounds of celebration. I sat in the back seat, clutching my purse with trembling, hands the gift still inside. Madison Avenue, please, I told the driver, giving him the address of my apartment, the place I'd lived in since Frank died, the place where Dorothy had spent countless afternoons helping me sort through Frank's belongings, telling me I'd be okay, or so I thought. As the taxi navigated the quiet streets, my mind drifted back to 1967, when Dorothy and I first met. We were both young teachers at Lincoln High School. I taught English, she taught art. We shared the same lunch period and the same disdain for the soggy cafeteria sandwiches. Those can't possibly be edible, Dorothy had said, eyeing my sandwich with a wrinkled nose. She pulled out an extra apple from her bag and slid it across the table to me. Here. At least one of us should have something fresh. That simple act of kindness was the beginning. Within weeks, we were inseparable, grading papers together after school, sharing rides, complaining about the principal. By the end of that school year, we had become each other's confidant. When Dorothy met George 2 years later, I was the first person she called, her voice breathless with excitement. Margaret, he's the one. I just know it. I was her maid of. Honor. I held her hand through the birth of her children. I stood by her side at her mother's funeral. And when my Frank got sick, Dorothy was there for me too. For every doctor's appointment. For every round of chemo. For that horrible day when we knew he wouldn't be coming home. 50 years. Half a century of friendship. How could she call me a traitor? I whispered to myself, watching the city lights blur through my tears. What did I supposedly do? The taxi stopped at a red light, and I caught my reflection in the window. The stunned expression, the mascara smeared beneath my eyes, the slump in my shoulders. I straightened up, dabbing at my eyes with a tissue. No, I would not let Dorothy's cruel words break me. But what had happened? What could have possibly turned my dearest friend against me so completely? My mind raced through our recent interactions. Everything had seemed normal, hadn't it? We had lunch just 3 weeks ago at our usual cafe. Dorothy had been a bit quiet, perhaps, but I'd assumed she was preoccupied with planning her party. There was that book club argument last month when we disagreed about the ending of the novel. But that was hardly worth mentioning. We'd had much fiercer literary debates over the years. The only unusual thing was, the taxi jolted to a stop. "Madison Avenue, ma'am," the driver announced. I handed him the fare and stepped out onto the sidewalk, my thoughts still churning. The only unusual thing was Dorothy's new friend, Elaine Powell. Elaine had moved into Dorothy's neighborhood about 6 months ago. Wealthy widow, impressive jewelry, always talking about her connections in New York society. Dorothy had been immediately drawn to her, impressed by her stories of charity galas and summer homes in the Hamptons. "You'd love Elaine," Dorothy had insisted, though when they finally introduced us, it was clear we had nothing in common. Elaine had looked me up and down with barely concealed disdain, as if assessing my worth and finding me lacking. After that, Dorothy had begun mentioning Elaine more and more frequently. Elaine says. Elaine thinks. Elaine invited me to. Had Elaine somehow turned Dorothy against me? But why? And what lies could she have possibly told that would make Dorothy believe I had betrayed her? I unlocked my apartment door and stepped inside. The silence enveloped me immediately. No Frank whistling in the kitchen, no TV playing in the background, just empty rooms filled with memories. I set my purse down on the side table, carefully removing the wrapped gift. I'd need it later, but not now. Now, I needed answers. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Christine's number. Dorothy's daughter had always been fond of me. I'd taught her in high school, written her college recommendation letters, attended her wedding. If anyone would tell me what was going on, it would be Christine. But my finger hovered over the call button. What if Christine believed her mother's accusations? What if she too thought I was a traitor? My hand fell back to my lap, the phone screen going dark. No. Before I could get answers from anyone else, I needed to understand what I was being accused of. I needed to figure out what had changed, and most of all, I needed to decide what to do with the gift that Dorothy had so dramatically refused, the gift that now held a power neither of us had anticipated. Sleep eluded me that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Dorothy's face, cold, accusatory, filled with contempt. I heard her voice calling me traitor in front of everyone we knew. By dawn, I had given up trying to rest and sat at my kitchen table, nursing a cup of tea that had long gone cold. The phone rang at 7:30 a.m. My heart leapt. Perhaps it was Dorothy calling to apologize, to explain that it had all been a terrible misunderstanding. But it was Harriet, my neighbor from down the hall. "Margaret, are you all right? I've been trying to reach you since last night." "I'm fine," I lied, my voice sounding hollow even to my own ears. "Why?" There was a pause. "You haven't seen it then?" "Seen what?" "The email. Dorothy sent it to everyone last night after her party." My stomach clenched. "What email, Harriet?" "Oh, Margaret." she sighed. It's awful. She's saying terrible things about you, claiming you tried to seduce George, that you've been spreading rumors about her financial problems, that you betrayed her confidence about Christine's marriage troubles. The room seemed to tilt sideways. That's absurd. I would never— I know, Harriet cut in quickly. Anyone who knows you would never believe such things. But Margaret, she sent it to everyone. All your mutual friends, the book club, even the church committee. I hung up shortly after, my hands shaking so badly I could barely place the receiver back in its cradle. Dorothy wasn't just content to humiliate me at her party, she was actively destroying my reputation. My email inbox confirmed Harriet's warning. There it was, sent at 11:42 p.m., after the party had ended. To my friends, it is with deep regret that I must inform you all of a painful truth. Margaret Wilson, whom many of you know as my longtime friend, has betrayed my trust in the most hurtful ways imaginable. For years, she has portrayed herself as loyal while undermining me behind my back. She has spread vicious lies about my financial situation. She has attempted to drive a wedge between myself and my husband. Most unforgivably, she has shared deeply personal information about my daughter's marriage that was told to her in strict confidence. I have confronted her with evidence of these betrayals tonight, and she could offer no defense. I am sharing this, not to gossip, but to protect others from similar pain. True friendship requires loyalty and honesty, qualities Margaret has proven she does not possess. With sincere regret, Dorothy Caldwell. I read the email 3 times, each word hitting like a physical blow. Evidence? What evidence could she possibly have for claims that were completely fabricated? My phone began ringing almost constantly. Some calls were from concerned friends, like Harriet, who didn't believe Dorothy's accusations. But others were from people simply looking for gossip, eager to hear my side of the scandal. I let most calls go to voicemail. What could I possibly say? How does one defend against lies so outrageous they defy explanation? By noon, I had received another disturbing call. This one from Jean, who ran the church charity committee I'd volunteered with for over a decade. Margaret, I'm sorry, but given the circumstances, the board feels it would be best if you stepped back from your duties for a while, until this situation resolves itself. Jean, none of it is true, I pleaded. Dorothy is lying, though I don't understand why. I hope that's the case, Jean replied, her tone making it clear she wasn't convinced. But we can't have this kind of drama associated with our work. After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence. Dorothy wasn't just attacking our friendship. She was systematically dismantling my entire social life, the community connections I'd built over decades. Late that afternoon, I finally worked up the courage to call Christine. To my surprise, she answered. Margaret. Her voice was tight, guarded. Christine, please. I need to understand what's happening. None of what your mother is saying is true. A long pause. My mother showed me the letters, Margaret. Letters? What letters? Don't. Christine's voice hardened. Just don't. The letters you wrote to my father. Mom found them last month. The world seemed to stop. Christine, I never wrote any letters to your father. Never. They're in your handwriting, she said flatly. From 3 years ago, while Mom was visiting Aunt Sarah in Florida, suggesting that you and he. She couldn't finish the sentence. Christine, that's impossible. My voice was shaking now. Someone must have forged them. You know I would. Never. I don't know what to believe anymore, she cut in. But I do know those letters exist, and my father isn't denying them. The call ended soon after, leaving me more confused than ever. Letters to George? In my handwriting? It was absurd. Impossible, unless a memory stirred from months ago. Dorothy asking to borrow some of my stationery. the cream-colored paper with my monogram that Frank had given me years ago. For thank you notes, she'd explained. I'd given her an entire box without a second thought, and now pieces were starting to fall into place. But one critical question remained. Why? Why would my oldest friend go to such elaborate lengths to destroy me? I looked at the wrapped gift sitting on my coffee table. Inside was something Dorothy clearly never expected to see again. Something that, if revealed, could change everything. It was time to uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The next morning, I woke with newfound resolve. I'd spent a restless night piecing together fragments of the past 6 months, and things were starting to make a terrible kind of sense. Dorothy's sudden friendship with Elaine Powell, the borrowed stationery, the abrupt cancellations when we'd planned to meet. The way she'd begun to mention George's late nights at the office with increasing bitterness. I'd been too absorbed in my own grief over Frank to notice how the patterns were changing. But now, with clarity that comes from having nothing left to lose, I could see that whatever was happening had been building for months. I dressed carefully. A simple blue dress, minimal makeup, pearl earrings Frank had given me for our 40th anniversary. I wanted to look composed, dignified. If I was going to confront Dorothy, I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me broken. I didn't call ahead. If I had, she would have refused to see me. Instead, I took a taxi directly to her house, the elegant Tudor in Westchester where I'd spent countless holidays, birthday celebrations, and quiet evenings over 5 decades. It was George who answered the door, his face registering shock at seeing me on his doorstep. "Margaret," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. He glanced nervously over his shoulder. "You shouldn't be here. I need to speak with Dorothy. She doesn't want to see you. After those letters I never wrote," I cut in, meeting his gaze directly. "Letters someone else created using my stationery. George, you know me. You've known me for 48 years. Do you honestly believe I would do something like that?" Uncertainty flickered across his face. For a moment, I thought I saw something else there too. Guilt, perhaps. But before he could respond, Dorothy appeared behind him. "What is she doing here?" Her voice was ice cold, but I detected something else beneath the anger. Fear. "Dorothy, we need to talk." I kept my voice steady, calm. "Alone. I have nothing to say to you." She moved to close the door, but I stepped forward. "I think you do. Unless you want me to share what I know with George right now." Her face paled slightly. She exchanged a look with George, a look I couldn't quite interpret, before turning back to me. "Fine. 5 minutes. In the garden." She practically spat the words. George retreated inside while Dorothy led me around the side of the house to her prized rose garden. The October air was crisp, the roses mostly gone now, only a few late blooms hanging on before winter. We sat on the iron bench where we'd spent so many summer evenings talking about everything and nothing. Now, silence, stretched between us like a wall. "Say what you came to say, then leave," Dorothy finally said, not looking at me. "I want to know why," I said simply. "Why would you destroy a 50-year friendship with lies?" "Don't pretend you don't know what you did. I didn't write those letters, Dorothy. We both know that." A flicker of something, surprise perhaps, crossed her face before she masked it. "The handwriting was copied from my stationery. The stationery you borrowed 6 months ago." I leaned forward. "What I don't understand is why. Why would you forge letters from me to George?" Dorothy's hands twisted in her lap. "You've always been the perfect one, haven't you? Perfect Margaret. Everyone's favorite. The devoted wife, the trusted friend, the community saint." The bitterness in her voice took me aback. "Is that what this is about? Some kind of jealousy? Jealousy?" She laughed, a harsh sound unlike her usual melodic laugh. You have no idea what's been happening in my life while you've been playing the grieving widow. Then tell me. For a moment, I thought she might. Her face softened just slightly, and I caught a glimpse of the Dorothy I'd known for so long. Vulnerable, human. But then her expression hardened again. Time's up. You should go. I stood, knowing I wouldn't get through to her today. Dorothy, whatever is happening, whatever has turned you against me, it doesn't have to end our friendship. We've been through too much together. Some things can't be forgiven, she said quietly. As I turned to leave, I paused. The gift I brought to your party, I still have it. Something flickered in her eyes, curiosity, perhaps even longing, but she quickly suppressed it. I don't want anything from you. You might change your mind when you know what it is. I left her sitting there among the last roses of the season, a woman I thought I knew better than anyone in the world, now a stranger filled with secrets I couldn't penetrate. I was halfway to the street when a voice called my name. I turned to see George hurrying after me, glancing nervously back at the house. Margaret, wait. He caught up to me, slightly out of breath. His face was drawn, worried. Those letters, he said quietly. I knew they couldn't be from you. The things they said. It wasn't your voice, your words. But Dorothy was so convinced. Who do you think wrote them? He hesitated. I have my suspicions. Elaine Powell has been very involved in our lives lately. Elaine? But why would she? Look into her background, George said, his voice urgent. Now. She's not who she claims to be, and Margaret. He stopped, seeming to struggle with what to say next. Dorothy is not well. She hasn't been for some time. Before I could ask what he meant, the front door opened. George squeezed my arm once, then hurried back toward the house. I walked away with more questions than answers. But one thing was becoming clear. The truth about Dorothy, Elaine, and the fabricated betrayal was more complicated than I had imagined, and my unopened gift now seemed more important than ever. George's warning about Elaine Powell gnawed at me. Who was this woman who had seemingly appeared from nowhere and driven a wedge between Dorothy and me? After a sleepless night, I made a decision. I called my nephew, Thomas, who worked in cybersecurity. If anyone could dig up information on Elaine Powell, it would be him. Aunt Margaret, this isn't like you, Thomas said when I explained what I needed. Are you sure about this? I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important, I replied. Something isn't right about this woman. 2 days later, Thomas called back. You were right to be suspicious, he said gravely. Elaine Powell isn't her real name. It's Eleanor Pritchard. She's changed identities at least 3 times that I can find. But why would she target Dorothy? Target me? That's the interesting part. She has a pattern. She finds wealthy older women, befriends them, isolates them from their support networks. And then, well, things tend to go missing. Jewelry, money, valuables. My blood ran cold. She's a con artist. A sophisticated one. And she's never been caught because her victims are too embarrassed to report being duped. As Thomas shared more details, pieces clicked into place. Elaine had been positioning herself to gain Dorothy's trust, while eliminating anyone who might see through her facade. And I, Dorothy's oldest and closest friend, would have been her biggest obstacle. There's one more thing, Thomas added hesitantly. I found medication records. Dorothy has been filling prescriptions for anxiety and confusion. High doses. My heart sank. George's words echoed in my mind. Dorothy is not well. After thanking Thomas, I sat with this new information, trying to process what it meant. Was Dorothy being manipulated by Elaine while in a vulnerable mental state? Was Elaine feeding her paranoia, perhaps even drugging her beyond her prescribed medication? I knew I needed to act, but carefully. A direct confrontation with Elaine would likely backfire, making me appear unhinged and vindictive, exactly as she'd painted me. Instead, I made another call, this time to Christine. "I know you don't want to talk to me," I said when she answered. "But before you hang up, I have information about Elaine Powell that might explain what's happening with your mother." To my relief, Christine didn't immediately disconnect. "What information?" I shared what Thomas had discovered, keeping my explanation focused on facts rather than accusations. That's hard to believe," Christine said when I finished, but her voice lacked conviction. "Have things gone missing from your mother's house? Has her behavior changed since Elaine arrived?" A long pause. "Mom's emerald necklace, Dad's anniversary gift, disappeared last month. She accused the housekeeper." Another pause. "And she's been forgetful, confused. Dad's been worried." "Christine, I would never hurt your mother. In 50 years, have I ever given you reason to think I would?" "No," she admitted softly. "But the letters were forged. Elaine is isolating Dorothy from everyone who truly cares about her. What should we do?" "We need to help your mother see the truth, but gently. Her 70th birthday present, the one I never gave her, might be the key." Later that day, Christine met me at my apartment. She looked tired, the strain of the situation evident in the dark circles under her eyes. I invited her in and offered tea, which she accepted with a distracted nod. Her eyes landed on the still-wrapped gift on my coffee table. "Is that it? The present?" I nodded. "Before I show you, I need you to understand something. Your mother and I have shared 50 years of friendship. This gift represents that history. The real history, not the false narrative Elaine has created." Carefully, I unwrapped the silver paper, revealing what I'd spent months creating. It wasn't just a photo album or scrapbook as one might expect. It was a hand-bound journal containing letters, dozens of them, that Dorothy had written to me over the years. "After your father's heart scare last year, Dorothy gave me these for safekeeping," I explained, opening the journal. She said, if anything happened to her, these were the words she'd want to be remembered by. Christine's hand trembled as she took the journal. Inside were letters chronicling 50 years of friendship, from teenage confidences to midlife crises to reflections on aging. Dorothy's elegant handwriting filled page after page with expressions of trust, love, and gratitude for our friendship. "She wrote this just 6 months ago," I said, turning to one of the final entries. "Margaret, my dearest friend, what would I do without you? You are the keeper of my secrets, the witness to my life. If I forget all else, remind me of who we have been to each other." Tears filled Christine's eyes. It's like she knew, like she somehow anticipated forgetting. "I think part of her did know something was wrong," I said gently. "That's why she entrusted me with these letters." But then Elaine arrived. Christine closed the journal, a new determination in her eyes. "We need to show this to Mom, now." "Are you sure?" In her current state, if she's being manipulated, every day we wait is another day that woman has to isolate her further. Christine stood. "Dad's taking Elaine to some charity luncheon this afternoon. Mom will be alone." I hesitated, then nodded. The journal represented the truth of our friendship, a truth that might break through whatever fog Elaine had created in Dorothy's mind. As we gathered our things to leave, I felt a strange mixture of hope and trepidation. Would Dorothy recognize the truth when confronted with it? Or had Elaine's poison spread too deep? Only one way to find out. Christine drove us to Dorothy's house in tense silence, the journal of letters secure in my lap. My hands trembled slightly as I held it, knowing what was at stake. This wasn't just about clearing my name. It was about saving my oldest friend from someone who meant to harm her. The house looked different somehow as we approached, quieter, more vulnerable. Christine used her key to let us in. "Mom?" she called. "It's me. I've brought Margaret." We found Dorothy in the sunroom, sitting in her favorite wicker chair, staring out at the garden. She turned as we entered, her face registering first confusion, then anger. What is she doing here? Christine, how could you bring her into my home after what she did? Christine knelt beside her mother's chair. Mom, please, just listen. There are things you need to know about Elaine. Elaine is the only true friend I have left, Dorothy declared, but there was something uncertain in her voice. No, I said quietly, stepping forward. She's not who you think she is. And I suppose you're going to tell me who she really is? Dorothy's sarcasm couldn't quite mask the tremor in her voice. Her name is Eleanor Pritchard, I said gently. She's changed identities multiple times. She targets women like you. Intelligent, wealthy, trusted in their communities. She isolates them from friends and family, then steals from them. Dorothy's face paled slightly, but she shook her head. That's absurd. You're just jealous of our friendship. Mom, Christine interjected. The emerald necklace Dad gave you, the one you thought the housekeeper took. Did it disappear after Elaine started visiting regularly? A flicker of doubt crossed Dorothy's face. That's just coincidence. And those letters you found, I continued carefully. The ones supposedly from me to George. Did you actually see me write them, or did Elaine discover them? Dorothy's hands clutched the arms of her chair. She was helping me organize my desk. She found them in George's drawer. Dorothy, I said softly, I've never written George a letter in my life. You know that. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, I saw confusion there. The fog of someone trying to reconcile contradictory truths. I placed the journal in her lap. This is what I brought for your birthday. Your letters to me, over 50 years. You gave them to me for safekeeping last year, remember? After George's health scare, Dorothy stared at the journal, not opening it. I don't remember doing that. Open it, Christine urged. Read what you wrote. With shaking hands, Dorothy opened the journal. Her own handwriting stared back at her, decades of thoughts, feelings, and memories chronicled in her elegant script. She turned pages slowly, reading fragments of her own past. Margaret stayed with me all night when Sarah was born, she read aloud. She held my hand through 17 hours of labor. She looked up at me, confusion in her eyes. I remember that. You brought ice chips and told terrible jokes to distract me. Keep reading, I encouraged. She turned more pages. Frank's funeral. Today. I don't know how Margaret remains standing. 52 years of marriage ended. She says I'm holding her up, but the truth is, she's always been the strong one. Dorothy's voice broke. I wrote this. These are my words. Yes, I said softly. Your words, your memories. Our friendship. Dorothy continued reading, tears now streaming down her face. With each page, I could see recognition returning to her eyes, not just of the events described, but of her own self, her own voice. I've been confused, she finally admitted, looking up. Things haven't felt right. Elaine's been giving me these new pills for anxiety. Christine took her mother's hand. We think she's been medicating you, Mom, making you paranoid and confused. As if summoned by her name, we heard the front door open. A moment later, Elaine appeared in the doorway of the sunroom, elegantly dressed from the charity luncheon. Dorothy, darling, She stopped short, seeing Christine and me. Her composed expression faltered for just a second before she recovered. What's going on here? I thought we agreed Margaret wasn't welcome anymore. Hello, Eleanor, I said calmly, watching her face. The color drained from her cheeks. My name is Elaine. Dorothy, these people are upsetting you. They should leave. Dorothy looked down at the journal in her hands, then back up at Elaine. Something had changed in her expression. Clarity was returning. No, Dorothy said firmly. You should leave. Don't be ridiculous, Elaine laughed nervously. You're confused again. You need your medication. What I need, Dorothy said, rising to her feet with newfound strength, is for you to get out of my house and my life. Elaine's facade cracked. After everything I've done for you? That woman, she pointed at me, doesn't care about you like I do. 50 years, Dorothy said quietly. Margaret has stood by me for 50 years. You've known me 6 months and already tried to steal my necklace and my sanity. George! Elaine called desperately. Tell them! But George appeared behind her, Christine's phone in his hand. The police are on their way, Eleanor. Or should I say, Catherine Wilson from Tampa. Or maybe Evelyn Price from Chicago. Elaine's face contorted with rage. She looked from George to Dorothy to me, realizing her game was up. Without another word, she grabbed her purse and fled. The police caught her before she reached the end of the street. Later, sitting in Dorothy's kitchen, like we had thousands of times before, we began the healing process. The doctor Christine called confirmed Dorothy had been over-medicated, likely with additional drugs Elaine had been slipping into her food or drinks. I said such terrible things to you, Dorothy whispered, holding my hand across the table. At the party, in that email, I can't believe I thought you would betray me. It wasn't you, I assured her. It was the medication and Elaine's manipulation. But how can you forgive me so easily? I squeezed her hand. Because that's what friends do. Real friends. Dorothy smiled tearfully. 50 years. And many more to come, I promised. Our friendship, tested by the cruelest deception, had emerged stronger than ever. The gift I'd brought to her birthday, the journal of her own words, had saved not just our friendship, but perhaps Dorothy herself. Some bonds, I realized, are simply unbreakable.